Hello everyone, welcome back to our Java coding tutorial video. So far we pretty much got into the basics of how to create your IDE environment and how to just get a simple Java program up and running. Now we are going to start applying the other topics we have visited in our lecture videos in the Intro to Java, where we covered our variables and expressions as well as our data types. So to refresh you, our variables use data types. So we need to understand the data types in order to create a variable. So in this coding tutorial, we are going to show you how to create variables using the different data types. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, in your IDE, you may have your environment set up differently. In this example, I'm using NetBeans, but it typically is similar in all IDEs. Wherever you are storing your Java files, please navigate to that project folder, and we're going to create a new file. So here I am in my folder. I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. In NetBeans, I can right click and then it says new. And in our case, we're going to say Java class because remember, all Java files must match the class name. So we're going to go ahead and create a new class. In this class, we're going to do data variables, and that's what we're going to call it. So basically to remind us what that program is doing. So from here, I'm done. I can finish. Now I have an example of my project file. I can start working with this. In NetBeans, it gives me a little bit more information. So I can get rid of this part. I don't necessarily need that. I'm going to leave this package line because it's basically saying what package does this belong to, and it belongs to this package here under source packages. So I'm going to leave that there. Now here is where I'm going to enter what I'm doing. So this, uh, give me 1 second. So basically we are going to tell our program code what we're working with in this file. So we're going to say this is a program to learn Java data types and how to create variables. So the reason I'm adding this comment is because let's say months from now I see this data variables file and I'm like, I don't know what it is. So when I open this file up in the future, I know exactly what's going on. So now that we have that, we're ready to go. We have our class set up and we just need to start filling in our basics. So again, for you to get started to run your programs, you need to have a main method. Now, without a main method, your program is not going to work. So you need to ensure that you have a main method ready to go to begin working with your code. So let's go ahead and place that into our file. So again, it stays the same. It's standard. We're going to tab over. I'm going to add space just so it's not directly on my class. And I'm going to do public, static, void, void, main, string, brackets, args, and our curly braces. Now, what I like to do is to add a comment at the end of the brace so I know what that brace belongs to. So, example, end of main, and another example, end of class. It just helps as more curly braces are added to your code. So now we are ready to start working with our data types and our variables. So first, we're going to start with getting into our overall variables and using the data types, applying them. So here we are going to say working with number data types. Okay. So the two that we primarily covered in our example videos were int and double. And of course, there are other ones, but in this case for us, we're just going to work with int and double. And you can say also there's long and your other data variable types that you can use. But that's just pointing out that I'm not doing all of them. Again, you can find them on your own. But in our case, int and double. So when we're creating it, you do data type, variable name. Let me camel case this. Data type, variable name equals value, semicolon. So what are we going to do now? We're going to create one. So we're going to say int. You see it turns blue. Then you can say age. Now, again, we can create it like this, but that's going to cause issues because we don't have a value assigned to it. So if we print it, it's not going to work or it's not going to show anything. So we can say we are declaring age here, and then here we would say age equals, let's say 15. And then here we're assigning age. So that's one way we can create our data type and also assigning a value to that data type. So in this case, we're using int. Now, another way we can create it is like this, int number equals 4563, and we'll go ahead and just make it like that. So that is another way you can do it. So you can do either or. And I'll just add another comment. All right. So we basically created two variables of the type int, and now we can work with those. So an example is what we can do is then add these together. So adding int variables together. And basically what we're going to do is, again, assign it to data type. So we're working with two ints. So our data type should be int. We're going to say int. We'll say result equals. And now what you can do is do age plus number, like so. And then now we have a new integer data type. Another thing you can do is, as long as you're adding another integer to it, you can also keep adding on to those values as such. So do you always have to use a variable to create a integer value? No, but there are some cases in your code where you would want to have a variable and then you need to use it in an expression. So basically what we're doing is creating an expression. So up here, I'm going to add using a expression. So that's basically what happened. We are assigning a integer variable that's called result, a expression, and that expression is going to result in creating a integer value because all we have placed in our expression is various integer values. Now the same way goes for doubles. So I'm going to add a little space just so it's easier for your eyes. You don't necessarily have to do the same, but let's say we're working with a double. To work with a double, we say double, and then we provided a value. So we're going to say double price equals, and give it a price, and semicolon. So again, if we want to work with a double, we could say double total price is going to equal price plus, and then you can just add on different doubles. Now with the double, you can also add on an integer and it would do that implicit casting, again, because the integer is smaller. So you could technically just say 12 plus 9 plus, let's say, another double, and then we're going to add our semicolon. So you see here, there's no red, there's no issues, it's not mad at us, and we're all good to go. So basically, we have so far our integer, we have so far our double values. Now we are going to work with char. Okay. And again, to start off a char, we could say char, and we'll say grade, grade equals single quote. Okay, we're going to do a single quote, and then you place in the grade. So let's say B. So that's an example of that. We can say char symbol equals, and then in here, we can give it a symbol like that. And now we have two char characters or char values. Our other data type is going to be Boolean. And that's true or false. And how do you make that? You would basically go Boolean T equals true, Boolean F equals false. And I'll actually just make these lowercase to make it easier to run them later. So those are our Boolean values. And the last data values that are going to be common to us are going to be strings, which technically we did not cover in the lecture yet, but they are technically also viewed as a data type. Strings are not primitive, like we covered, but they are still technically working with data. So I will add it on here. So strings. Again, we haven't covered this. We haven't gotten to it yet, but I still want to introduce it to you. But a string is going to have the data type of string. Then we'll say name equals JSON. All right. So far we have our example of our code. We have various number values and char, Boolean, and string. So far we have all these variables, but there is no way to see them. There's no way to view them. There's no way to really work with them. So we're just establishing and assigning variables, and we have an example of that expression as well. But once we create them, you need to use them or see them. And to see them, you would have to then print them out. So you would have to do your print statements. So here we're going to say printing our data values. Now what I like to do is many times in your code, you're going to have a lot of print statements. So I create a generic one that I can copy and paste later on, just to make things simpler. So here I will do that. So I'm just going to add it here. So that is system.out.print line. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my parentheses and my semicolon. So you see here, I can now work with that value. I'm going to copy it, and then I can just paste it as I need to going forward. So basically what I want to do is print out all our values. And in our case, we have the value of age. So you see that there. We also have the value of number. So I'm going to paste, type number, and I'm just going to keep going down the line. Result. And as you see, we are working with the code. You see result is highlighted at the top. It's also highlighted at this print statement. It's connecting the two. And that light bulb with the caution sign is no longer there. So it's basically saying that we have finally done something with the variable that we are assigning. So we're going to continue to do that. So we're going to then print out our price. Oops. Price. We're going to print out our total price. Just keep going down the list. We're going to print out our grade. We have up next symbol. We have up next T. And we have F. Followed by our last one of our string, which is name. All right, so now you see all of our light bulbs and warning signs are gone, meaning that we've used every variable that we have created in some way in this code. So technically, right now we can run this and we're going to see all those values print out. It's not going to tell us, what this value is assigned to. It's just going to show us the value. So we'll go ahead and run our code. First, I'm going to save it. Then I'm going to run it. Our output is going to come out. And there you have all of your values that we have created in our program. Again, it's not telling us what we're printing. It's just printing out the actual data value. So, for example, if you want to print text with a data value, you can pretty much use the plus sign or a comma to do so. So for example, we can have our print statement. And we're going to say here, that we want to print out whatever we're printing. So we have our print statement, and then we have a data value. So I'll just go ahead and put the name data value in here first. So we have name, and when we have name, then you can add on the text to it one of two ways. So you can just simply add a text or a string here with a plus sign, like so. And then you can say the name is, and then add a space, and then there we are going to print it as a sentence. Similar to that, you could also say the number is, and then here we'll say age. Oops. Age, and we're going to add them together. So when we do that, we'll run it. Oops, ran the wrong file. Oh, making a mess here. All right, but here you go. So now you see at the bottom, we then have the name is Jason, the number is 15. So simply by using that plus sign, we can do that. So I'm going to go here. We're going to say using plus. So that is an example of how you would then add text to a value to see what it is. You could also say, for example, the grade variable is holding plus grade. And then that would be a way that you could then connect what the variable is holding back to the value if you need to. In many cases, you don't necessarily need to do that, but there might be a case where you're trying to map out what is what in this case, and there you go. So this is a simple, straight to the point video showing you how to create your common data types in Java, how you should assign them to variables, the different ways you can assign them to a variable, and also how you can print them to view what each one is holding. So hopefully this was helpful and not too confusing. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Again, there are other videos that you will find that are going to be more detailed than this, but I feel like the more details you add, the more confusion comes into play, especially when you are just starting off learning Java. So I'm going to always keep these coding tutorials as simple as possible for you to easily grasp each concept we're working with each week. So I hope you found this video helpful. I do recommend that you practice this on your own, create your own file, and follow along with me to be able to have these concepts stick better. So thank you for joining this video, and I look forward to seeing you in our next coding tutorial video.